This should be good.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Yukti. Thanks. I'm delighted to be speaking about this topic. Akmal, thank you for co-presenting with me. So today we want to talk about MySQL database and why is it that people want to replace their MySQL database with something like Singlestore. We want to talk about migrations from MySQL and how easy they are, and the reasons why people would do them. Singlestore can scale horizontally and it handles transactions and analytics. So let's get right into it. Um, so we see a lot of people come to Singlestore looking for a solution to some of the challenges they have with MySQL. And the typical scenario goes like something like this. They have started building out a customer-facing application, and they originally chose MySQL for its many reasons. It's open source primarily. That's one of the reasons. They might be using MySQL's, managed database service, something like RDS MySQL, and things had been going okay for a while. But as they experienced user growth, application performance just deteriorated, especially for analytics. Now, often this problem has been the worst for their biggest customers, your biggest customers or your newest customers, because they're coming in when your database is already reaching its limits. So these biggest customers are probably the ones who are the most mad about the performance issues, because they expect the best from your company. Um, at this point, you're thinking what to do with this. You're not able to scale out your MySQL deployment. You try offloading queries to other databases, and that's actually very costly. Speaking of costly, ETL is costly if you're trying to use multiple databases to solve for this. And ETL also takes time, right? So it takes hours or days with nightly jobs and such. So it does render the data that you're using for analysis stale. At this point, these are some of the symptoms. These are indicators that you have outgrown MySQL, and you're not alone, right? But before we get into what other customers try to do, let's talk a little bit about why these problems exist with MySQL. And these are some structural problems with MySQL, and these are in three parts. They have to do with the scaling ability of MySQL, their analytical performance, and the cost of MySQL, right? So first on the scalability. So MySQL is not a distributed database. It's a single core architecture. It is designed to scale vertically, not horizontally. If you try to shard it yourself, write application code that would allow you to, shards MySQL, that's going to be very complicated. Performance also is not good enough when it comes to larger data sets. So it's kind of designed more for the gigabyte scale rather than the terabyte or the petabyte scale, which is where you start to think, okay, maybe this is just a transactional database. I need to choose an analytical database or OLAP database. So that's the thing with MySQL. It's not an OLAP system. That's the second point. It's a row store. It lacks many of the OLAP capabilities. It's not got materialized views. You cannot vectorize your query execution, and it actually performance really starts to suffer when there's high cardinality in your queries. So cardinality is just referring to when you have a lot of unique elements in your data set, and these kinds of queries make it they're very much more difficult to analyze because the computational cost for these queries is much higher. So it's hard to kind of generate insights from this kind of data set. The last point here is on cost. So actually, MySQL is open source. So you'd think that it's no cost really, but most serious applications, production applications, they're built on some sort of a database as a service that's built on top of MySQL. So it's not free from the get-go, but even after that, the costs are much more than you might expect. So MySQL is a row store database, so it's not got the columnar compression, and so you will see that you're unable to say you'll spend a lot on storage costs on disk with MySQL. Second is it's unlike most cloud data warehouses. MySQL does not have separation of storage and compute. So which means is you cannot take advantage of a storage layer or remote storage layer like an object store for large data sets. So you'll end up storing all of your data in on the disk, which is going to be much more expensive as well. Last point on this is because of these um, shortcomings of MySQL, you will end up using other databases, and we'll double click into that. But because you're ending up using other databases, you will you will spend more on licensing and maintenance for these other databases. So let's look at what it looks like. So when you start out um, building your application on MySQL, things sort of look good. It's sort of, it's on, you're on MySQL, you have smaller data sets, a smaller set of users, and that's when it works okay. Now you might want to start to try bring operational data in from other applications, other databases like a transactional database like Oracle or SAP. And that's kind of where it starts to struggle, right? And you could still get around this by adding more nodes, and you can try to scale up. But then you also want to bring in, let's say, third-party data. This is maybe stored in semi-structured format. So it's JSON data. And now you're thinking, I might need something like MongoDB to store all these documents and then query them. While this is happening, your user growth has happened, your data complexity has increased, and so now you're thinking, okay, so I'm experiencing application performance start to dip. My queries are noticeably slower. Users are starting to complain. So maybe I fix this with a cache database like a Redis. And it helps. It speeds up your queries, but it's costly. Um, what if you also wanted to add additional capability to your application? Maybe you need a text search within your application. So you think of adding a full text search database like an Elastic. You might end up needing adding streaming data from IoT sources or logs and so on that you need to analyze in real time. So you'll add a Kafka to that to that architecture, and then you want to analyze all of this, right? So you're like, okay, I need a data warehouse to actually do all of this. So you'll add a Snowflake or maybe a ClickHouse or a Druid kind of a real-time analytics database. And then finally, your management is pushing you to and your developers are pushing you to have a generative AI initiative, and you are considering vector databases to add to all of this, right? So as you can see, this is incredibly complex. It's starting to get very inefficient to power all your applications. You need to start to stitch together multiple databases, multiple components. And you're moving data around. You cannot scale fast enough. You have way too many bottlenecks, which is just it creates latencies and it starts to impact your customer experience. So we want to simplify this architecture, right? And it's so consider that this is your uh, prior architecture. You've got a user-facing analytical application, you've got a point of sale application for transactions, you have a BI dashboards that business users are going to use, and you've got different kinds of databases to support all of these. It's what we offer with Singlestore is a one solution to to take care of all of these applications, to actually support all of these applications with performance, with scalability, and cost efficiency. So you can consolidate multiple databases, your or open source transactional databases like MySQL, your data warehouse, vector search databases, full text search databases. and you do not need any extra Kafka queues. There's no ETL tooling required when you have a single source of truth. So you eliminate a lot of the overheads, and your total cost of ownership goes goes way down. And we'll talk about that in a bit. So before we get into the benefits and the quantifiable results people see with single store, I want to talk about what makes this all possible. How is single store even able to do all the things I was just talking about? So this is a quick visual to support that. And as you'll see, that single store is capable of supporting both analytics and transactional level workloads in the same system. So we have a pretty unique piece of technology we call universal storage, which is in our engine. Um, and regardless of the data source, we can support transactions, we can support analytics, and this universal storage can handle both kinds of workloads. Um, we support multiple sources of data. We actually ingest this data incredibly fast, and we can ingest it from multiple formats. We ingest it directly into memory, which is the reason why it's incredibly fast. When you ingest it, as soon as you ingest this data, it's available for querying. So it's really, it's truly real-time analytics on freshly created data. And keep in mind, this is not just structured data. Unstructured or semi-structured data, JSON data, geospatial data, time series data, vector data, all of it we can store and retrieve very efficiently with a single product. And now this is a single cloud product, but you have multiple deployment options. You can deploy it as a database as a service in Azure, in GCP, or in AWS. But we also have a self-managed offering for which you can deploy in any cloud of your choosing, as an on-premises or bare metal or virtual machines, kind of whatever makes sense for your business. You can deploy in that manner. And as I was saying, we have support for multiple data types. And so it's a fully, general purpose, multi-model database capable of all kinds of applications. Um, so including AI and real-time analytics. So let's talk about the benefits of actually moving from MySQL to single storage. So these are the kinds of things that everybody experiences with single store. So we're known for our speed, our scale, and our simplicity. So specifically in, comparing with MySQL, single store's speed is much better when you talk about point reads, point writes, our ingestion speed, uh, you know, query latency, vector search capabilities, full text search capabilities, JSON capabilities. We're very performant on all of these areas, especially when it compares to MySQL. Second, on the scale, it's a fully distributed database. You can scale out, you can add as many nodes as you need, and you can have unlimited scaling of your data and your application as your users grow. You don't need to move data around actually. And then lastly, on the simplicity. So single store is MySQL wire compatible. So what it means is that you do not need to change any of your MySQL queries. You don't have to change your application code. It's a drop-in replacement, so which makes it very easy for you to swap your application, MySQL in your application with single store. Um, these are the kinds of improvements customers experience from a speed perspective. Like I was saying, our ingestion is incredibly fast. If it's 10x faster, that just means that you will spend 10x lower on compute for that ETL. That's a huge cost benefit for most of our customers. And from a scalability perspective, it's rather than a gigabyte scale, it's a petabyte scale database. So 100x, 1000x scale is not a problem for single store. And then cost savings, considering MySQL DBaaS kind of deployment, something like RDS, customers of Singlestore typically report 30 to 50% cost improvement over something like RDS. Um, I just want to say that whatever I put out there, whatever we talked about, it's actually born, in fact, by real customer stories. This is not, trust me, bro. Single store is great for this. You should look at what customers are telling you, what customers are saying about single store, and this is the lived experience of these customers. They're building apps on single store after having tried to do this with MySQL. So I want to talk about two tests that real customers have done. First is Fathom Analytics on the left. So Fathom Analytics is a fast-growing web analytics software company, and it's a alternative to Google Analytics in its real time. It's wildly popular with marketing users, and it's experienced a lot of growth. And this growth has um, resulted in its need to scale much more than they initially did with MySQL. So they found Singlestore, and when they had come to Singlestore, this is what they said to us that we've been struggling with keeping up with our analytics data growth, and we've been growing so fast, and our data ingestion has become a much bigger problem than it was. So it's all great for our business, but it's not great for application performance. So that's when they came to Singlestore, and we'll share these links with you in the chat. And but you should take a look at these couple of stories. The second story on the right here is Anuvu. Now, Anuvu is one of the leading global airline telecommunications providers. They were actually using MariaDB. And the reason I'm talking about MariaDB in a webinar focused on MySQL is that MariaDB is, for those of you who don't know, it was just a fork of MySQL. It was created by the original developers of MySQL back in the day when Oracle acquired MySQL through its acquisition of Sun. And there were concerns in that community, in the MySQL community, that it would not be, the direction of MySQL, and some would say that that's probably borne out, that the direction of MySQL was not the one that they would have wanted to take. So that's why I want to talk about Manuvu, and we will share these links with you. But I want to talk about these in a couple of, I want to share some highlights of what the testing was by these two customers. So first on the Fathom Analytics, and we'll share the link to the entire video with you. So this video is an excerpt from the course Jack Ellis created for Singlestore. It's actually a Singlestore with Laravel course by Jack Ellis, and he's the CTO of Fathom Analytics. Now, if you'll watch the full video, Jack describes his headaches with MySQL, and he just shows very simple tests comparing the performance of single store versus RDS MySQL, and he uses single store's Helios cloud data platform. The data set is about 9 million rows, but even with that kind of data set, he shows that there's aggregations run 1.5 times faster, updates are 57 times faster. He creates a hash index on both these databases, and creating a hash index on single stores, like, just takes seconds. It's 4 times faster at least. Um, he also starts with a very small compute instance for both these databases, but it's about two-thirds of the cost. So he spends about $730 a month on RDS MySQL versus $500 for similar compute, actually less compute for single store. If you're looking at this and thinking, aggregations are just 1.5 times faster, that's not reason enough for me to switch to single store. Actually, this is just simple tests, right? These are small data sets, and these problems become much more acute with large data sets and with complex queries that might include joins, that might include group bys. You get the picture. Also, these results that you'll see in the video if you get a chance to, but these results are without even optimizing single store. So this is just, moving data into Singlestore and using it as is. You can do optimizations like sharding and so you can use sort keys, and this will significantly improve the benefits that you will see on performance. Um, Also, Jack in this video, he points out that he loves the schema updates and software updates with single store, and these are so much easier. Column store compression is also something that he really likes. Let's talk about Anuva's test also for a little bit. So Anuva actually came to us from after having tried MySQL and MariaDB, and they also tested performance against cloud data warehouses like Snowflake and Redshift. As you can see, Anuva was able to prove, and this is like real production data that they did these tests with. So performance for queries, like I was saying, it's actually much greater if you use production data and complex queries. So this is 70 to 100 times faster than MariaDB. And after having moved to single store, Anuvu actually was able to cut their total cost of ownership by 10 times, and overall a performance increase of performance boost of 20 times across all kinds of queries. And it's not just these two, right? So we've got tons of customers who've done this, right? Literally, we've got hundreds of customers who we've helped move from MySQL and other similar databases to Singlestore. And these are just some of the logos of these customers who started out with MySQL. These companies span technology, cybersecurity, MarTech, e-commerce, smart cities and smart grids, publishing technology. What's common between these companies and you is that they're all builders. They're movers and shakers. They're changing their company. They're changing their industry. And these are companies that have grown to thousands of customers, right? These are companies that are planning to IPO soon. So this is the peer set that has actually validated single store and has moved to it. And I just want to leave you with one thought before we talk about how this is actually easy. Like I was saying earlier, the migration is easy. You can use several tools. We have native capabilities to talk around this tooling, around this migration. So you can do this very easily. People have done this in a couple of hours even. So let's talk about how this is made possible. Um, Before we actually get into that, I think Yukti, you have an announcement.
We will announce the raffle winner at the end of the session. So just give me like, what should I say, 2 to 3 minutes, and like that's when we announce it. Is that all right?
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right, Akmal, how about we talk about, how to sign up for single store and like how to actually make this transition.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Abby, for that intro. So let me just, there we go, share, and just bear with me. And let me just maximize my screen there and minimize this. And I can do what you did, present a view. So I kind of like that, but here you can see it's not what I want. I want this. There we go. All right, then. Okay, so in this part, then, we'll look at a little bit of a sort of practical element to what Abby was saying in terms of that migration process. So given that we have customers that are moving away from MySQL and looking for something better, I think Jack Ellis, that Abby mentioned, wrote an article a couple of years ago, still one of the most sort of popular blog posts out there, the database of my dreams, I think he called Singlestore. So wonderful sort of commentary from him. but we'll get to this in a moment. Okay, so a couple of ways that we could do it. Now, Abby mentioned the ETL. Okay, is one of the mechanisms that you could use, and you could do that actually using a variety of tools. Something that you could build, yourself, custom sort of solution. You could use external tools as well to help you do that too. It's a kind of a rather crude way, though, to go about the process in terms of getting the data out of one system and then having to perhaps, format it a little bit, get it into the right frame, and then load it up into another system. Fortunately for us, because we are MySQL wire compatible anyway, I mean, that task would be somewhat easier. But anyway, there are better ways to do this. An alternative would be something like this, MySQL dump. And actually, I've used this myself. So I've actually taken dumps from MySQL systems and then be able to load them directly into a Singlestore without much difficulty. In fact, I think no difficulty for the sort of data sets that I've worked with in the recent past, certainly. So that's a good solution as well. That can work out of the box. And the third solution here, which we're going to look at today, is this Singlestore CDC, okay, change data capture. So this is something that we've offered for a little while now, and I saw in the chat there's a question, a gentleman asking about alternatives such as MongoDB and Microsoft SQL Server. Well, we actually offered this for MongoDB first. This change data capture, and I've actually covered it in previous webinars as well, but we have this facility now for MySQL as well, and I will show you a demo of that very, very shortly. So all these, I mean, there are probably many other ways that you could do this. I mean, these are kind of three principal ways. It's not an exhaustive list, but probably the three that would come to the top of your mind, with the possible exception of this one, okay, which hopefully will be very, very useful to you going forward. And so if we look at the example that we're going to demo, it is a scenario where we are migrating data from MySQL using Singlestore's native change data capture CDC. All of your data or a subset of tables databases. So you can kind of define how much of the data, how little of the data, what tables, you've got full control in terms of what you would like to move across. As far as the setup is concerned, and we'll look at this momentarily, so this is using the smallest of the Singlestore S00. I think it's 2 virtual CPUs, 16 gigabytes of RAM. And then on the other side, we have a MySQL system running as well, where we are going to take this data from. That's 4 virtual CPUs and 16 gigabytes of RAM. So roughly similar, slightly more power there. But in terms of memory, approximately the same there, as you can see. And so initially for this particular example, we will take a snapshot load. So basically we have some data. I think it's over 100,000 rows of data. And then you can have this pipeline continuously running. So it's like a live connection between the two systems. And then I'm sure you're familiar with CDC and the way it works anyway. So we can force new data through as well from the MySQL side to Singlestore, and that will get propagated. And this is a kind of a useful way to have some confidence as well. I mean, I've worked in industry long enough, and in the distant past, I mean, working for, excuse me, past employers, examples where, older systems would be left to run in parallel for some time. You have some new technology or some new programming language that you want to utilize, or the latest hardware, and you develop a new system that runs in parallel with the old system for some time. You make sure that you're happy in terms of the process. Are the data being propagated correctly to both of these? And are they being processed correctly, and so on. And so this kind of environment gives you the ability to have some confidence, keep your existing investment, see the benefits that MySQL may fall over on, and some of the points that Abby mentioned. There are things that it's good at, but there are things that you may require in terms of analytics, for example. Vector support, for example, time series geospatial, which again Abby showed on his slide, and therefore Singlestore provides enormous benefits in those areas. And then once you see those benefits, the data load and process can be completed, and you can kind of switch off the MySQL end of it. So this is one useful way to approach this problem. Zero downtime, okay? So there's no need to take your systems down, no need for the ETL as well. And in terms of the connection setup, I mean, it's trivial. It's really just a couple of lines of code, and you'll see that momentarily. Okay, so let me switch to this now. Okay, so we'll come back to this slide in just a moment. The link that Yukti has shared in the chat for the prize draw, your choice of one of two. And so if you go and click on the link, it will take you to this page, okay? And so literally within less than 30 seconds, I mean, either provide your sort of Google credentials or Microsoft, or if you wish, do it the old-fashioned way, you know, enter your first name, last name, and company email address. What you'll get is access to two things, okay? The shared tier, which is currently in preview, but very robust, reliable, you know, available for use today, or the kind of dedicated compute environment. Okay, again, we'll look at that momentarily. Okay, $600 worth of credits. Okay, so once you've signed up, you've logged in, you'll get into the portal, which will look something like this. Okay, this is the kind of the landing page that you have. And so very briefly, okay, before I dig down into the demo itself, notice that on the left-hand side, okay, you've got this thing here called group. Okay, let me just highlight that for you. There we go. So if you click on this, this is how you provision yourself some compute resources, which you will need if you want to do some serious work. Okay, within this environment, you have the ability to create databases. You can access the databases using notebooks, for example. And again, some compute resources are required in order to do that. So you've got two options here, as you can see, the standard workspace, okay, and the starter workspace. Okay, let me just highlight this. So this is the currently selected for the standard, and here's the starter, which again, preview, as we mentioned a few moments ago. Now, I'm going to use the standard one today for this reason, in that the pipeline and the link that I'm going to set up to MySQL is currently available on the standard version. I believe some of these features will be extended to the starter version as well, but this is essentially like this and currently supported on one cloud provider, and you can see one region. This is almost instantaneous in terms of provisioning the resources for you. For the standard version, it takes a little bit longer, a couple of minutes, okay, because it does require you're specifying what your configuration is and what you need in terms of you know, how many CPUs and how much memory and so on. I have this running already, and again, you have a choice of cloud providers here as well, which Abby mentioned on his slide. Okay, so today we're going to use AWS, but you could equally use GCP or Azure. Okay, and then select your region. I guess for myself, it would be something a little bit physically closer. So Europe, okay, either choose London, Europe West 2, or I guess Ireland would be good choice as well, Europe West 1. And then just click next on the bottom. Okay, so that's all you need to do. There we go. Okay, and again, here's where you can configure the compute resources. So mentioned S00 on that slide. Okay, you can edit this, and I mean, there you've got enormous choice in terms of I mean, literally this goes all the way up to I can't see it because Zoom is blocking my view. Let me just move that out of the way. But there is an S384, which is over 3,000 virtual CPUs and 24 terabytes of RAM. And that uses up a hefty 384 credits per hour, far more than the free that you'll get. But anyway, if you need something that large, I mean, we can accommodate. Okay, so that is the benefit there. Okay, and literally just say create workspace. Now I've got this running already. Okay, so I'll just move back and back again. So we'll demo that for you in just a moment. One other thing that's important and relevant to mention is this thing here on the left-hand side called gallery. All right. So if you take a look here, you'll see that we have a wide range of notebooks that cover a wide range of scenarios, kind of things that you want to do. So there was a question about Mongo, for example. Well, you have the ability to utilize some code there working with Mongo Atlas and Singlestore Kai. And then there's a whole bunch of other, here we go, here's a good one, ingest data from MongoDB to Singlestore using SQL commands. And there's even a kind of a nice example, which I think is further down here. Let me see if I can find it, which is a combination of several different technologies. So you can actually utilize MySQL and MongoDB and an S3 bucket. So literally you are ingesting data from 3 different sources, and you're able to perform joins across the data across all of these 3. And so this could be, again, a very useful mechanism. Here we go. Unified data analysis, SQL and NoSQL on a single database with Kai. Okay, so utilizing some of these CDC, Mongo, and so on. Okay, there we go. So let me just show you what I have then. And again, from once you've provisioned some compute resources, notebooks available from the left nav. Again, you can see it from here. Okay, so let me just show you this. There we go. And I've got something running here, which I'll show you. Okay, so it's a little bit of code that I put together fairly recently, and this will demonstrate to you how easy it is in terms of getting the data across. So somewhere out in the internet, there is a MySQL server running, and it's got a bunch of data on there. And I'll show you that momentarily, okay? Because we will put some extra data in there just to show you that this is a kind of a live demo. So the first thing we need to do on the Singlestore side is that, assuming that we have our compute resources running, we've got a workspace, and we've provisioned that, and it's up and available for us. We will create a database. Okay, so in this case, we'll just drop this if it already exists and just recreate it. Okay, so this database is called MySQL replicate CDC, and there we go. It's done that for me. And I've got an action required here, just a reminder to myself to ensure that that database is actually selected at the top here. Otherwise, we'll get an error. So that's fine. Okay, so the next thing we'll do, we'll just run this command here, show tables, okay, just to show us what's available. Now, can you see there's no database selected? So moments ago, you saw that it was there. And because I ran that command, in the meantime, it's updated it. So this is why this is useful in terms of a reminder, just to ensure that we have this selected. There we go. Okay. So at the moment, you can see that our database here on the MySQL side, it's empty. Nothing returned there. All right. Now here, I'm just going to input, and I'm going to use this get pass to input an IP address. Hopefully it's, let's just take a look. Okay, bear with me one moment. And let me just get the details of that. Okay, there we go. Let's just copy that there. That big again, and let's just resume this. Okay, that's it. Here we are. Okay, put this address in. There we go. And this is the little bit of code that does the magic. So essentially what we are doing here is we are creating this link here. Okay. And we are telling Singlestore that it is from a MySQL system. We provide some configuration details. Okay. So we've got the host name here. Okay. Which is just picked up from the get pass I used above. And we are giving it some information of what we want to exclude, where we don't want the performance schema. Thank you very much. That's not required. The table that we want, it's in this particular database called S2 MySQL CDC test, and it's called supplier. Okay. Database port 3306 here. And then we provide some additional information in terms of the credentials. Okay, yes, you can see the password. I realize that. And yes, you can see the username. I realize that, but without the database host name, you're going to have some trouble connecting to this system. Okay, so let's just enter this. Okay, so that's done. And again, another reminder to myself, action required, make sure this thing is selected at the top, which it is. There we go, before we run this again. Okay, so now we'll just connect locally. We will execute this SQL query just above, and it will create that link for us. And then straight away, we can just ask Singlestore, okay, show us the links. What do you know? And it says, well, you've just created this thing here, okay? And it's of type MySQL. There's a couple of different types, okay? So MySQL is one of them. Mongo is another one. S3 is another one, okay? There's a couple of different ones that you can set up. In this particular case, we are interested to get the data from MySQL. And then here we say, okay, go and interrogate that table that exists on the MySQL system out there in the internet somewhere. And, use this kind of infer pipeline to create the table for us on this side. And it's using this Avro format. You'll recall that Abby mentioned that we support lots of different formats. And what this is doing then is pulling that information across. And just below here, then we're saying, okay, show us what tables you know now. And remember, this was empty a little bit earlier. Now we have this table called supplier here that's been created for us. And if we ask Singlestore, describe supplier, tell us what it looks like. And you can see here that what it's done, it's been able to pull that information from the MySQL system and given us a table that replicates what exists on the MySQL side. So we have an ID field as our primary key that is probably auto-generated. And then we've got a whole bunch of other information, supplier key, name, address, and so on. I mean, you can see these fields there. So this has been created for us. Now, so far, we've created the link. We've created our table now based upon the information on the MySQL side, but we haven't actually ingested anything. So now we're just telling Singlestore, start the pipeline, okay? And there we go. And then we can take the opportunity to say, all right, show us what pipelines are currently running. And it tells us that this pipeline here, okay, remember we defined this earlier, the link, and it's running, okay? And then we can do a count of the table on the Singlestore side. How many rows have you got? It has come up with this figure here of 100,151. And if I run this again, it will show the same amount. I talk too much. So if I was slower and ran this a couple of times, you'll see that number would have gone up, right? So essentially, it's taken all of the data from that MySQL system using this CDC. It's all been ingested into the Singlestore side now, and we can take a look at the data, let's say 5 rows, and it will show us these 5 rows here. You can see, okay, this my real estate on my screen is a bit limited here, but I mean, you get the gist of this. You can see that we've got the data coming across just fine. Now, just to kind of prove to you that this is a live kind of environment, remember this figure here, okay, that we have this many rows currently, and this is the kind of taken a snapshot of what was on the MySQL side. So we're assuming for now that there's no new data arriving on the MySQL side. What we can do then here is some examples, and this is Markdown, so it might be a little bit easier for me if I just copy this SQL code here. Okay, take this, all right, and we're going to enter some new values into our MySQL system, okay? So let's just do this, and let me just minimize this for a moment, okay? Hopefully you can still see my screen. And I should have and again, Abby, you'll see, Maduka, please let me know if you can't see this terminal window. So this is me connected to that MySQL system using a MySQL CLI. And if I take the opportunity to say, okay, show tables, you can see I ran this a little bit earlier on. So there is that suppliers table, okay, that we connected to, and I can do this. Okay, I ran this command a little bit earlier on. It tells us that it has this number of rows. Oops, pardon me, I'm too clever here. And just, there we go. It is exactly the same that matches what we saw on the single store side. So this is the snapshot. Okay, so there's no new data currently arriving in the MySQL system. That's fine. So what we can do then, that little bit of code that you saw me, just run this. Okay, so 10 rows entered. Let's take a look at this. You can see one by one. Okay, so it's got, let me just go back up here. Now, if we run this and take a look, how many have we got in this supplier table? Now you can see it's incremented by 10. Okay, so there's 100,161 now. And then if we go back here, okay, just find the right, there we go, customer portal. And just maximize this. There we go. And we just go back up again. If we rerun this command here. Okay, so remember now we're on the single store side. So if we execute this command, here you can see that that figure has been updated. Okay, so we took the snapshot. New data arrived into the MySQL environment in the meantime, and we were able to, it magically took care of that for us. So trivial in terms of setting this up, it is really a no-brainer. You can see, I mean, the link code, you need to provide some details. Obviously, what is this target system that you want to connect to, as well as some credentials there. Once that link is set up, that live connection will remain until you cancel it, you stop it, or you delete that database, in which case this will die. But other than that, that will remain. And so this is a great way, as you can see, very, very straightforward, easy way to get the data across from MySQL into Singlestore, have the opportunity to use all the benefits that Abby talked about in terms of what Singlestore offers in terms of its separation of compute and storage, JSON support, vectors, analytics, many, many times faster. And then, if you need some convincing, have a look at the video from Jack Ellis that Abby referenced, and that will give you some of that he's not associated with us. He is a customer and did his own performance evaluation. So you'll see what his thoughts are on that. All right, there we go. So let's take a look. We are nearly out of time. So let's just go back here and then just summarize then. So if this interests you, hopefully it does, and it's given you some food for thought and some thoughts about where you could utilize Singlestore in your environment and some of the benefits it could provide for you. So from a developer perspective, again, from the diagram that Abby showed, I mean, it's great because instead of having to learn half a dozen different products, you now only need to learn one. And from a business perspective, it's great because you lower your total cost of ownership, you improve your return on investment. And again, in terms of licensing and managing it long-term, that gives you great advantages as well. And if you need help, we have this program, okay, Go Live Acceleration. We can work with you, do an assessment, okay, go through the design and plan, migrate and validate, post-migration support, and then cut over support as well, okay? So all these services are available through colleagues that we have. Okay, and so just to recap then, so lots of potential there. Yes, MySQL is a great product. We have the wire compatibility with it. It's been around for a long time. It's been used in a wide range of situations, wide range of applications, but it has limitations, as you saw Abby discuss. And we see lots of customers that want to move away from that, and they are very happy with Singlestore. And we feel that Singlestore is a great opportunity, and an option for you if you are thinking about it in terms of moving on to something that's far more scalable, far more versatile, improves your overall cost of ownership, and improves your, keeps your developers happy, basically. I mean, it's the real advantages and benefits that you get. Okay. Abby, anything else you would like to add, sir, before we wrap up and hand over back to you?
I did post a few resources, the demos that we were talking about, the webinar with Anuvu. There's a Laravel course that Jack Ellis did. So all those links are in the chat if anyone wants to review those.
Awesome. Great. Thank you very much, sir. And so I think, as I said before, I mean, Jack Ellis's video is probably a great resource to check in terms of the performance benefits that moving to Singlestore can provide. And there is that blog post that he wrote a couple of years ago, and in quotes, words to the effect that I found the database of my dreams. And he thoroughly and very rigorously tested a wide range of products because he wanted to get the best product for the kind of problem that he was trying to solve. And therefore, as a customer, I mean, he ended up using Singlestore simply because it fit the bill. And that's an awesome endorsement as well. I guess over to you then, Yukti, as you want to do the draw, and if there's any other things that we need to follow up in terms of Q&A. I think there's a couple of questions that seem to be there. Let me just have a look, see if there's anything else that.
So I think one open question around will Singlestore database and infrastructure, will it be run isolated or dedicated mode, or is it going to be shared, multi-tenant? Actually, you can serve multiple customers with Singlestore. You can configure it for multi-tenancy, and you can provide them each a dedicated environment or a shared sort of setup. So we're happy to have this conversation with you, Amil. Please do email us. We're at team@singlestore.com. Let us help you with that. Thank you. There was another question, and for those who are asking, will the recording and what we presented be shared? Yes, the recording will be shared with all of you.
Great. I think you want a quick mention of the forthcoming things again. So May 30th, 31st, and June 3rd, just to recap.
All right. Thank you so much, guys, for such an amazing session. So, guys, quick notes before I announce today's raffle winner. So, we've got amazing sessions coming up for anyone who has joined late. Please head over to our website and RSVP right now on May 30th. On popular demand, we have full stack AI apps with Vercel, Next.js, GPT-4o. Scan the QR code and it will directly take you to the website for RSVP. And on May 31st, we have how to build personalized marketing chatbots, Gemini versus Laura. And on June 3rd, we have using open source Copilot for personalized banking applications. And on June 26th, I have also put this in the chat. We have unfreeze your iceberg data, which is something that we talked about earlier during the session. And if these topics sound interesting to you, please RSVP right now. The June 26th event is one of our most awaited events. So it would be nice to see you all there. And so moving forward, the announcement everyone's been waiting for. So today's raffle winner, it goes to Amit Panelkar. He's a senior director of AI at BlackRock. Congrats and thanks for joining,
Yes,
sir.
congrats.
And guys, if this is not you, please do not give up. We are going to announce one more AirPods winner and a Meta Ray-Bans winner by the end of the day. For anyone who has tried out today's demo by signing up using the raffle link, you guys can be eligible and be entered to win. And I want to thank Akwal and Abhinav and Madhukar as well for joining in and for this webinar helping us out. We really value your time and energy, and thank you for everyone who has attended live. And please feel free to email us at hello@singlestore.com in case of any questions and anything else that you feel like has been missed during the webinar. And thanks for joining. And guys, have a great rest of the day, great rest of the night, and thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone.